This is Matt Brown, and you're listening to Just a Good Conversation. Claudia Christensen is not your run-of-the-mill Hollywood actress. She has directed, produced, written books and screenplays. She's done voiceover work before voiceover work was the cool thing to do. She's acted along some of the biggest stars, from Bob Hope, Faye Dunaway, Morgan Freeman, Larry Hagman, and Isabel Rossellini, just to name a few. You might have seen her on her hit TV show Babylon 5, or in the pages of Playboy. What you didn't know is for years she was in a battle for her life with alcohol.
Does it break my heart at times that I lost at least a decade of my life to that son of a bitch? Yeah, I miss those years, but on the other hand, I realize what I've gained from it and what I've learned along the way and how happy I am now, and that I overcame an immense struggle and that I can stand firmly in who I am today and be proud that I took something unbelievably heinous and turned it into something really beautiful.
I'm Matt Brown, host of Just a Good Conversation. Take a listen to our archives. My guests have ranged from Emmy winners, basketball coaches, sports writers, and photographer Greg Gorman.
I came in and Sydney says, "Oh my God, Greg, how long have you been on this picture?" I said, "Well, this is my 5th week." Sydney says, "Oh my God, Christ, I cannot authorize you to stay on longer than this." I said, "Okay, I'll let Dustin know." And so I went to see Dustin, and I said to Dustin, "Listen, Dustin, Sydney said, this has got to be my last week." "Fuck, Sydney," he says. "You stay on."
The rest of my conversation with Greg can be found on our archives at justagoodconversation.com. Let's take a quick break for a sponsor before diving into my conversation with Claudia Christensen. I've got an actor, a director, a producer, a writer, and the sexiest woman in sci-fi. How are you, Claudia?
Well, maybe that was in 1998 or whatever, 2001.
Hey,
that's a hell of an introduction. A lot to live up to.
Sci-Fi magazine said it, right? So it's got to be true.
So it must be true.
Right.
It's got to be true. Sci-Fi magazine said it.
Yeah. You can't put something in, a magazine and not be true.
No, never. Gosh. No way.
Like I said before we hit record, after reading your book, I wanted to give you a hug. We are the same age and we've grown through the 80s. And young lady, you made it through the 80s.
I sure did. Boy, it was a heck of a decade. And I, in some way, I'm really unbelievably grateful that I had a 70s childhood in the woods with no cell phones and freedom and nature. And then I had an 80s childhood in Hollywood as a teenager. Once again, no cell phones, no internet. Everything was, well, I hate this word that everybody uses. It's authentic. I hate it. But I have to say those kids don't know what authentic is. What authentic is having to pull over and put a coin in the payphone to call your, your agent because you're going to be late. Authentic is meeting people randomly everywhere you go and becoming friends instantaneously and committing to traveling together. That's an authentic life. An authentic life has nothing to do with Instagram.
No. And remembering phone numbers.
Oh my gosh, I still remember phone numbers and addresses and everything. And I mean, that's fading, unfortunately. The other day I had to stop myself from using, my Apple Maps and thought, I know how to get there. Why are you putting the address in? You've lived in Los Angeles since you were 16 years old.
Right.
Suddenly do you not know where Melrose is? And then you justify it by saying, well, maybe this will tell me if there's any accidents. Who the hell cares?
Right. You're not going to go.
It's so interesting. I had lunch at the House of Commons with a member of Parliament who's a gentleman who I adore, and he is in his 80s, and he said he has never sent a text or an email. And he said one of the biggest reasons is because if you live your life through email and text, you don't have time to think. And deep thinking is required of great movement in the world, of political structure, of historical structures, of change, of great historical change is dependent upon people who think deeply through problems, who truly, truly think deeply. It has nothing to do with LinkedIn and synergy and all that crap people talk about. It has to do with a really brilliant mind sitting down and having the time and space to think. And if you're answering 100 emails a day, you don't have time to deep think at all. So he was right. And I really thought about that a lot. And I thought, I'm going to really live my life a little bit more like that and take at least 20 minutes a day to sit outside in nature and think.
Right. We forget just sitting outside, whether it's your patio or whatever, just listen to sounds, turn off that damn phone, just
leave
it
in
the moment.
Yes, exactly. And everyone talks about, I'm going to be present. Well, you're not if you cannot leave your phone alone. Larry Hagman, who directed my very first gig on Dallas, he had a great rule. I know my very first job in my career on film and television was an episode of Dallas with Larry Hagman with a bottle of champagne in one hand, wearing lederhosen, directing me. And God bless him. What a man. He took every Sunday of his life for God knows how many years, and he refused to talk to anybody. He didn't say a word on Sundays. And I thought that was so interesting.
Wow.
He had silent Sundays.
Where he got that philosophy or idea, or just?
I don't know. I never, I found out about it through somebody, and I didn't have the courage to ask him on the one day I worked on that gig. But it was something that he did for himself, and he did it literally for decades. He just refused to speak on Sundays, silent Sundays. And I thought about that, and I thought, I'm slowly but surely taking more and more time away from devices and definitely from social media. I think social media is one of the beastliest things on the planet. I think it's really depriving us of community and friendships and just, a deep understanding of the human condition. I think that it's stripping everything down to a very odd and unhealthy need, which is pick me, look at me. And it's out of desperation, and it's sadness and deep loneliness. I think that the one of the core really, really sad things about the United States is the deep loneliness. And I travel extensively for all of my work. And I'll tell you, I spent 6 weeks in France in the countryside. I didn't see one person with a cell phone on their table while they were eating a meal with friends or family, period.
Yeah.
No cell phone. And they were deep in all four generations were sitting around talking, laughing. And I thought, wow, you look at the American table and every person is just locked to that.
We were in Montana in June in a little town, Ennis, and my wife and I were there for 5 days, and we noticed the same thing. We would go into a restaurant. Nobody had their phone out. They were all talking. There was a little event. The kids were wood whittling. I was like, if you tried to have a knife in Santa Monica and you gave it to a 9-year-old to wood whittle, they would take your kids away. They would arrest the parents. There's no way they'd let you do that in West LA.
I know. I grew up with, everything. Razor blades. We were dissecting dead animals with giant Bowie blades.
You never, I can guarantee you never rode a bike with a helmet on, right?
Never.
You never skateboarded with knee pads. You never, none of that.
No, I didn't wear seatbelts in the car. We did cross trips, and I was in the back with I had a bowl for the water for my dog, and the dog was in the back with his food and everything, and I was in the back seat sliding around through Texas and Oklahoma, and and we'd out the window and we'd jump through. The dog would jump around the car on everybody.
And there was an ashtray in the car, and somebody was probably smoking.
Oh, thank goodness my parents didn't smoke.
Good.
Small mercies. My mom didn't have a martini in her hand when she was pregnant either. She was more inclined to sugar than.
What was the spark for you? What was like the igniter that said, I want to become a performer?
Oh gosh, that's very easy. I was hired. I say I was 5 years old, and they picked me to play Chief Massasoit in the annual Thanksgiving play, and I had the longest hair, so they braided it into these giant braids and let me play the chief. And my friends were playing the Pilgrims and other Native Americans. And I remember being in the newspaper, sitting right in front, cross-legged, with the Indian feathered headdress on, and I was just a little squirt. And when we finally did the play, I realized that this was the only time that adults were actually listening to me, and they were all sitting in the audience, politely staring up at me while I recited lines. And I thought, this is power. This is power, man. And I mean, I lived in a house with 3 older brothers, so I never got a word in edgewise, nor was I. I was very quiet. I'd hide under the table from my brothers, and I was very shy. And so this was a moment for me to just say, wow, this feels good, standing up here delivering lines and having people smile at me and laugh. And it was wonderful.
Do you remember any of your lines?
Probably. They probably threw in a very un-PC how, or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was awful and stilted dialogue. But
well, you were 5. I mean, what were they going to give you? You weren't going to break out Shakespeare.
And then I ended up reading Ramona the Pest, and that led to Shakespeare as a teenager. Funny you say that. I've played some of the greatest roles. I did a few years ago. I played Lady Macbeth.
Where?
I played, in Los Angeles. I'm a member of this group that was spawned through a thing called Brit Week, where the wonderful director Louis Fantasia, who was also key in rebuilding the Globe in London. He's a Shakespearean expert, and I do Shakespeare for the masses. It's sort of a way to assimilate people into Shakespeare with small bites. So Harry Hamlin and I did a few scenes from Macbeth. We do a few scenes from others' plays, so people don't get overwhelmed and they still learn to love the language. And we get really dynamite performances. Jwali Fisher does it occasionally. Jane. Oh God, I just spaced on her last name. That's so weird. The British actress who was in the James Bond thing. Seymour, Jane Seymour.
Oh, Jane Seymour. Okay, yeah.
Michael York, wonderful Michael York.
Oh, yes.
With us. I actually did a film with him. Lovely man. Really, Michael Nuri, who I did The Hidden with, sometimes plays with us. I mean, really great actors that love classical theater. So, so I went from chief mass associate to lots and lots of theater, and then ended up wanting to be on television when I saw, funny enough, another kismet, 12-step connection. And I don't mean that in an AA way. I mean that in seven steps from Kevin Bacon, or whatever it's called, 6 degrees of separation. I was watching Little House on the Prairie, and I saw Melissa Gilbert as Half Pint. Yeah. I was about 12, and I said, that's it. No more theater. I'm going to be on TV. If she can do it, I can do it. And funny enough, years and years later, Melissa Gilbert was married to my co-star in Babylon 5, Bruce Boxleitner, and I worked with her on Babylon 5. So talk about, here's this little 12-year-old in Weston, Connecticut, staring at the TV. It's the only TV show I was allowed to watch was 60 Minutes and Little House on the Prairie.
Wait.
Yeah,
60 Minutes?
That's all my father allowed us kids to watch was 60 Minutes and Little House on the Prairie. That was it. So you had a choice. One was on Sunday night, one was on Monday night. So you only had one. So I chose to peek at 60 Minutes behind their backs and watch Little House on the Prairie in their bedroom on Monday night. That was all to myself, because my brothers didn't want to watch that show. I had the whole room to myself, and I'd sit there glued to this wonderful show starring children. Right. There were so many children in it. And I thought, okay, this is it. And then when my dad was transferred to California, I was 13, about to turn 14, and he told me the news that we were moving yet again. And when he said California, I went, it's a sign. I'm going to Hollywood. Little did I know he was going to park us in Orange County, but that's
yeah. It's not really Burbank, right into the back.
No, not Studio City where I live now. No, nowhere near Warner Brothers or anything.
And you were in deep Orange County back then too, in Laguna.
Oh, yes, Laguna Hills and Laguna Beach. That's really far away.
Yeah.
That's a good hour and change for a kid stealing her mom's car on the 101 and the 5 freeway.
So, but you dabbled in modeling.
I did, because when I was 14, I suddenly blossomed from awkward to attractive, and I was on the beach, and this photographer sort of found me and set up an appointment in New York after he photographed me. He sent some photos off and got me an appointment at Nina Blanchard and at Eileen Ford in New York. So at that point, I was doing modeling, like, just local stuff. And I was doing newspapers and a couple of magazines and just things that various people hired me for. I had a bunch of jobs at that point because I was determined to do high school in 2 years. So I had to work a bunch of extra credits to get work credit applied to my GED. So at that point, I was just trying to make enough money to live in Los Angeles. And when they said that there was an opportunity to go to New York, I was, I think, 15 and a half at that point. And I had a photographer, a female photographer, come with me as my chaperone. And she took me to New York. Seriously, she took me to New York, and I met with these modeling agencies. And I was already 5'9" and skinny as a greyhound. And they told me to lose more weight. And I remember, and I was so skinny, and I was sort of already prone to developing an eating disorder, because after a childhood of being told to finish my plate, suddenly, when I was about 12, I was a little chubby, and I was told, now you have to diet. So it was so confusing to me. So I overdid it in the calorie counting and stuff. So I know that my brain was already changing into somebody who could easily fall into a food disorder. And when they said that to me, I remember the chaperone, God bless her, she turned to me and she put her hands around my face and she said, "You know what, Claudia? Screw them. You are perfect the way you are. You will always be perfect. And besides which, you're better than this. Let's go to Hollywood. You should be an actress. Screw modeling." And I said, "Well, that's what I want to do." And she said, "I don't even know why we're here. I'm sorry I brought you." She said, "They have no right to tell you to lose weight." And I was so happy about that. I felt so great. And that gave me the confidence as a young girl, in the most insecure time of your life is 14, 15.
Oh, yeah.
The hormones are raging and you're changing. And I came back with this really firm resolution to finish high school, get my GED, and move to LA. And so I worked another job. And another job, I lied about my age. I was serving drinks. I was a host. I was
that was great.
Oh, yeah. And I was stealing money from the till. I was doing everything I could to make enough money. And I got a bank account. I changed my name legally. I did everything in preparation. And by the time I was 16 and I could drive, I just said, that's it. And I stole my mom's car, met a manager, and the rest is 40 years of craziness.
Now, let's break down what might the modeling agency be looking at. Like, you were 5'9", almost 5'10"?
I was 5'9", and I probably weighed 100 and I don't know, 5 pounds. I mean, that's
my God.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, right now I'm the same height and I'm 130 pounds and I'm a size 4, 6.
Right.
So it's not like I was not. I mean, imagine when I did my first movie, The Hidden, I was 120 pounds and I was bone thin. You can see it. I stripped down in that movie. I didn't have an ounce of fat on my body, and I was 15 pounds more than I was when the modeling agency saw me. So it's ridiculous. The standards were ridiculous. Of course, they don't do that now. They have all sizes in magazines. But back then it
must have been skin and bones, no boobs, no butt, no nothing.
No boobs, no butt. You can see bathing suit pictures of me from that era. I'm literally, I look like a prepubescent 10-year-old. I mean, I'm just skin and bones, and tall. I had shot up like 5 inches. So there's no way, there was no place for there was no weight.
There was no, yeah.
No weight to lose. I mean, I would have, you already saw my ribs. I mean, you could see in the bathing suit shots, my ribs were completely showing.
Oh my God.
So I think it was just sort of a standard thing where they weighed you and did like a height thing and did some sort of measurement, not taking into account, somebody's big boned or whatever. I don't know. Whatever it was fortunate in a way, because it made me realize that I didn't want to do this. I would much rather be rejected as an actress than as a model.
Right.
Because then I'm doing what I love to do. Why am I doing a stepping stone to the career that I want to be in? Why not just go for the career I want to be in? Why do I need a stepping stone?
Right.
Why not just go right for the gold?
See, what always bothers me about that, especially as a photographer, so like they'll put wrap over like where you were Playboy or Penthouse. Can't see the cover of that, but they'll show Cosmo or Vogue, and they don't tell you that they've manipulated Scarlett Johansson 7 times to put her on the cover. And there's no warning to a 14-year-old girl like, yeah, this has been manipulated.
Yeah. And it's funny you mentioned that with Playboy in the same sentence, because when I did Playboy, they didn't retouch me. That was all done with lighting.
Yeah.
That's all done with lighting. They don't stretch you. They don't do. I said, well, are you going to retouch everything? She said, no. It's all done with lighting.
Right.
Mine was back in 99. So I don't know what they do nowadays. They probably do the whole Instagram filter crap and all that. But back in those days, it was just the skill of the photographer to light your skin in the way that it would look the most luminescent and beautiful.
Right. And as a woman who's tall, right? So you've got that advantage. You know your body better than anybody. You know, this is my good side. I can lay my legs like this. I get long. I can narrow myself out. I can get broad shouldered if I want. Women are really good at that, especially if they're actresses and models. They know.
Sure.
So you get in front of a photographer and a guy who can light, you're gorgeous. Done.
Exactly. We know our stuff.
So when things start taking off for you in the 80s, right? Like the LA Olympics is happening in 1984 and you're skyrocketing. You're doing Webster, you're doing Dallas, you're doing Falcon Crest, the A-Team, like you're just blowing up on TV shows. Are you starting to think in your head like this is it? Like I'm here. I haven't made it like I'm doing movies, but I'm in LA and I'm happening.
I was so focused on, first of all, the naivety of the naive confidence that I had was because everything fell into place. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do and I did it. And it was a different world back then. When I went up for an audition, it was 6 of us, usually the same girls I'd see in the waiting room. There'd be, maybe 12. There'd be a redhead. There'd be a dark-haired girl. Nowadays I go up against every race, every sexuality. There's no way that I would be able to do what I did in the 90s, play 2 transsexual roles on television nowadays. I'd never be able to do that today. And I fought hard for those roles, but I would never be hired as a transsexual nowadays. So everything has changed. And I also go up against men. I go up against, every role that now they see hundreds of people, not dozens anymore. So it's a completely different world. But did I think that I made it? I wasn't. I was just happily working toward the goal of being a career actress. So in other words, I just thought this should happen in my 20s. This should happen in my 30s. And by my 40s, I will grow into these roles. And I saw it long term. I was looking forward to a really, really long, steady career that had an upward incline, obviously. But then I got massively interrupted when I developed a substance use disorder. So that took away a good trajectory of my career. I mean, it hit me at a time when I was really at my height, my late 30s.
Right.
So it took me from I think I'm a much better actress now, but as a saleable entity, your late 30s as a woman, it's like, wow, that's when you should be starring in these films. And I had tested for things like Basic Instinct and Speed. And I was getting opportunities for big things before my addiction crept in. So I knew that I could have, it's funny. My brother says, well, you would have been an A-lister had alcoholism not stolen that from you. And I like to say to him, hey, I still got time, kid.
Yeah.
I'm not going anywhere. That's the funny thing about, about this industry. Back then, I was telling somebody this the other day. back then I remember the high from getting a role every single time. I remember that absolute thrill, and that has never dissipated in 40 years. I still get so excited when it says offer in my email box. I still get that endorphin rush when I get an audition. And that's the sort of addicting thing about a life in the arts. When you get chosen or you beat everybody out for something, or you get something you really want, it's a joy that that nothing mimics. So there's no drugs or alcohol or love or any endorphin that I can think of, chocolate or whatever, that matches the joy I get when I book a job. And that's kind of a sickness in itself. But I derive so much joy from working as an actress that it just is never dulled. It's never gone away. So that's why I know that I'm in this for life, whatever it's going to pan out to be.
But is that a little bit of the competitiveness in you, though, that you've?
I don't know. It's not. It's fulfillment. It's not competitive. Okay. It's not saying, oh, look, I beat out all these people at all. It's, oh, wow, I did well enough. I projected something that they think that I can do the part in the way that they want me to. I can portray their dream. And see, a lot of people say, a lot of actors are really into creating things for themselves and creating projects and entities and all this stuff. And I do that as well. But my joy is bringing a writer's character and a director's vision to life. That is my joy. My joy is making those creatives happy with my performance and bringing their vision of that character to life. I find joy in that. More than anything is I feel like that's a job well done when they're happy with my take on the character and they're happy with the way I delivered the lines and the way that I'm performing this, then I'm happy. That's the joy I derive, is making their dream come to fruition. So I'm a conduit. That's not a competitive nature at all. That's a team player.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, when you're doing this, you're doing something with as many people in a movie, you need everybody to be on the same page, right? Yes. I
know my job. I know my job. My job is to not make a fuss and to say the lines in the best way possible and to be a professional, not get in anybody's way. And I always make an effort. It's funny. I was on the set of 911 last week, and one of the crew guys said, "You're always so considerate of everybody on the crew." And I thought, well, if I can make your job easier, the Steadicam operator who's carrying a huge camera around with him and has a very, very tricky shot, if I can make everybody's job easier, A, we get out of here sooner, and B, everybody's happy because we got a great take. So why would I not assist you or anybody else?
Right.
Or the focus puller or, whatever. So it just seems like it's collaboration. It's not about one person. It's about all of us making this television show. So let's all work together.
You've got a great view. You've seen TV in the 80s when it was very simple still to now.
It was film, darling. It was film. Yeah. Not on film.
Yeah. To now, like there's Steadicam operators for a TV show and there's green screen and gimbals and all kinds of stuff. I mean, the early shows you were on, that was pretty simple television.
Oh, it was a master, two shots, and some close-ups. And there you
done.
And you shot the scene, and you had a hair light, an eye light, you had your key light, you had, and you knew where to find your light. And if you had all this beauty light. So you looked like, it's so funny when I look at some of the things like Columbo I did with Faye Dunaway. And you cut to Faye Dunaway and she looks like she's like shot through Vaseline. And then you cut over to me, who's in my 20s, and I got nothing, they didn't put any light on me because I didn't need it. I was in my 20s,
They lit you with high beams off a truck.
Exactly. It's so funny now when I look back. They lit these women. Oh, and I did, of course, I was Jessica Fletcher's neighbor in Murder, She
Wrote.
Yes. Angela Lansbury, all soft focus. And there's me, in my 20s, clear as a bell, every freckle on my face. It's so funny. It was now I'm the one who needs all the light.
Oh, stop. You've worked with legends, though. Straight up legends. Bob Hope Dunaway, like you said.
Burt Lancaster.
Yeah. Morgan Freeman, when he was still kind of coming up. Michael Keaton, that movie for him, that kind of put people in chops. He wasn't just a comedian anymore.
Yeah. Nicolas Cage. I've worked with a lot of interesting actors, a lot of the greats. I was there's an uncredited role I did because I was cut out of the film, and that was called Tough Guys with Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. And I remember I was just literally, I think I was just 18, and I was cast as in a restaurant scene. I had a couple of lines and it ended up getting cut out of the film. But I thought, even then, I knew who I was working with. I was like, this is Burt bloody Lancaster. I'm working with him in Spartacus. It was crazy.
And Spartacus.
I mean, I thought, this is insane. These are legends, and when I was cast with Faye Dunaway as her daughter, I thought, wow, this is Chinatown, Yeah. So, and of course, Peter Falk, who was just delightful.
Bob Hope?
And Bob Hope and Don Amici. And that whole film is laden with stars. Look at that.
Oh, God.
And Yvette Mimieux is in it, who I ended up doing a series with. That same year, actually, I was cast in a series with her. Yvonne DiCarlo was in that. Frank Gorshin, the Batman, the original one. Really great Broadway actors. Anita Morris, I worked with. Just Andrea Marcovici. I mean, I've really had amazing. And Babylon 5 for 4 years and a bunch of movies was Aladdin with Theodore Brickell, Michael York. I mean, we had great theater actors that came on there as well. So I've been really, really, really blessed in my career to have worked with a host of people.
Yeah, because your crossover in that time period is perfect.
I know. I got the end of, because the 50s and 60s megastars were still alive.
Yeah.
So I was meeting the Burt Reynolds at parties. I was meeting, Chuck Heston going to his New Year's Eve party. I was meeting all these legendary people, Farrah Fawcett. No, I was meeting them at parties, and working with Jacqueline Smith, who I had watched on Charlie's Angels as a child. I mean, here I was playing her sister. Can you imagine? As a kid, I'm watching Charlie's Angels thinking, oh, my favorite one is Jacqueline Smith. She's the and then years later, I'm in my 20s again, playing her little sister. It's just remarkable.
Oh my God.
I know. I know it when I think back then. But it's so funny when you ask the question, did you know that you were doing this? No, I didn't pinch myself or anything. It was just work. I was just working. I didn't sit there and go, oh my God, I'm working with so-and-so. For me, it was just, well, this is cool. This is fun. I was blasé about it because I was just sort of, I was so naive and so confident that I just thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
I'm supposed to be working like this.
Right.
Now I think about it, I think, had I just kept that confidence up my whole career, I would probably never have a problem. Now, because work here was so infrequent, that now everything is so precious. When I book something, it's like, oh my God, it's like winning the bloody lottery.
What was it like in those 80s when you would get a phone call, no email, of you've got the job?
Oh, it was great. It was so exciting. Well, first of all, we had, of course, only one phone. That was our landline, but we had an answering machine.
That's right.
Yeah, so you check it from a phone booth. I'd pull over and check my answering machine to see if there were any messages. Occasionally there would be like, congratulations, kiddo, you got the whatever, job or whatever it was. And I would just sit on the corner of the street in Sunset and Highland going, screaming to nobody. There were a lot of moments like that. Or I'd get home and check my messages, or my manager would be saying, "Give me a call, sweetheart," and I had to put a voice. I was like, I remember. In fact, that movie you mentioned was Morgan Freeman. I remember I went up for the Kathy Baker role in that, and my manager pulled a fast one on me. She said, my agent actually called me, and she said, well, you didn't get the role because, she said, but hold on a second, it's because you were too young, but they really, really love you, and they want to offer you, without reading for it, the only other female role in the film, which was Iris, the girl in the rehab. facility. And when I think about that, like that's pretty amazing in itself as well, that I didn't even have to read for that. In the beginning of my feature career, I'd maybe done 1 or 2 features before that. And it made up for other times. You know, there was a funny incident where Milos Forman was casting Les Liaisons Dangereuses, and I was hired to be the reader, but they sort of kind of promised me that I was going to be playing Merteuil, and I was like, well, okay, so why am I reading with I guess I have to read with everybody to get chemistry reads. I worked on that bloody film for 6 weeks, reading with everybody, reading with the biggest stars, Daniel Day-Lewis, you name, I mean, everybody was coming in to read with Milos Forman, and I was the reader. And I read with everybody, you name the star, they came in. And it's at the time, I was like, okay, well, that's because I'm playing the role. It turned out, no, he does this all the time.
Oh.
He just people. As of course, he hired Annette Bening, who was 10 years older, 20 years older than me or whatever. But it was like, what? I was so pissed off. I thought, and then I realized the casting director said, oh, no, sweetheart, you know, to my agent, oh, no, he does this all the time. He just picks an actress that he likes and has to read. And my agent was even pissed off at that. Like, well, that seems a little presumptuous that she wasn't told that clearly.
Yeah.
I was promised something. I wasn't even paid 6 weeks of my life.
What?
No, I wasn't even paid for it. I hung out in a hotel room for 6 weeks.
My God.
At least there wasn't any hanky-panky. No Harvey stuff.
You had some pretty crazy in those 20s. Your 20s were pretty crazy between jet setting, getting around, buying a house, getting married. Like it was wild for you. When was there a point that you were like, wow, Hollywood's a bit of a mess?
I didn't really think that because I had the expectation. I knew about the casting couch when I first came to LA. I had girlfriends that were my age. I heard stories. I mean, I had been hit on by men, and you just learned to say no. I mean, I had my whole Robert Evans thing where I showed up to auditions. Right. He exposed himself to me, you know, and I was 18. I shut my briefcase, took my headshots back, threw back the script at him and said, no, thank you, and walked out. I just said, I don't think I'm the girl you want. And I walked out of the room, called my agent and said, you're right. He was a creep. This was a setup because my agent told me I wouldn't go alone. And I said, I could handle myself, and I could handle myself. But I knew that there was crazy stuff going on, but it just all felt normal. You know, I'm sure people would say that about the 60s and 70s, you know, growing up during the 60s. That must have felt very liberating and you know, civil rights movement and everything changing, and of course the Vietnam War happening. I mean, I'm sure that during those eras, people weren't really conscious. You're not consciously saying, wow, I'm living in an interesting era. I mean, you're just living, you're going to these clubs and seeing all these amazing acts and people. And when I look back now, I think, holy moly, I was hanging out with Billy Idol and
right. I mean,
yeah, and the Brat Pack, and I was always in interesting company. I was going to the Carousel Ball every year because I was dating the son of a head of a studio. I was hanging out with Dodi Fayed, so we were traveling the world together. And I don't think I took it for granted, but I also don't think I was gobsmacked like some country bumpkin, because I grew up in a sophisticated household and with a European mother, and I just thought, well, this is the way it's supposed to be. I don't know. I didn't really know any different.
Your mom sounds like a kick.
She's funny. God bless her. Yeah, she's a hoot. And she's also one of those people. She knew exactly what she wanted. She left a war-torn Germany, came to America, was a dental hygienist. Her first client was Mae West. Her second client was Gregory Peck. She then dated William Frawley, who was on I Love Lucy. I mean, and this was when she didn't even speak English. And so then she ends up being the manager of Georgia's of Beverly Hills. with no education, by the way. She totally lied about on her resume. Back then you could, because there was no such thing as Google. And she totally lied about everything. And she like clawed her way through Saks Fifth Avenue and all these designer salons and ended up being this, Beverly Hills star. She was the national spokesperson for Red Perfume. I mean, this is a woman who had a education of up till 13 years old. And I mean, yeah, she's a superstar herself. And then she transformed herself into an award-winning interior designer.
Unbelievable.
Once again, with no education, no training. So,
and she's a beauty. Like, I think you describe her in the book as she's gorgeous.
Oh, she's drop dead gorgeous. She was also a model. Yeah.
Yeah. Jesus.
Yeah.
It's a good mom to have.
Well, I mean, and my father also was a hardworking man who just could do anything. He could not only, he's the district manager of Shell Oil Company, but then he could also build a house. Everybody had different talents. Right. My brothers are like that too. Scientists, builders, one is a veterinarian, but he's got a million other talents. I mean, so we're all sort of ambidextrous in that sense.
Oh, man.
And resilient as hell.
I mean, you worked really hard on your craft. And I got that from the book and looking at and researching. I mean, you didn't just bullshit your way through. You busted your hump.
Oh, I went to every great acting coach. I did summer courses at Lambda. I did years and years of theater training. I did improv around the world for 20 years, so I would get my improv skills up. I studied with everybody. Great. I mean, you name it, I've studied with them. So, and if I was not working, I was in a class. That's what we did back then. Nobody just was a YouTube star and got on a series. Nobody did that. Everybody was getting headshots and working on their craft. I was in classes with Sean Penn. I mean, everybody was still honing their craft with Peggy Fury or Larry Moss. And we were all Milton Katselis. We were all working all the time everybody was in scene study class. You never just, got a job and then said, okay, I can act now.
Right. You were
constantly going to the gym, and the gym was scene study classes.
When I met you, I thought, okay, this is a woman that it comes from that Hollywood era of you could probably ride a horse, dance, sword play, act, right? Like you're like a Swiss Army knife. You're accomplished in all those things. So if they said to you, we need you on a horse, you're going to jump off, you're going to dance with the evil villain and have a sword fight, you could accomplish it.
Yes, I did sword fighting in Highlander and many other projects. I rode horses in westerns and many other movies. I rode motorcycles. I can sing. I can dance. I can speak in about 20 different accents.
Yeah, your accents are really strong.
Well, I lived in England for 13 years too, so that helped.
Do you get a little that bit from mom with the German accent that kind of slides into?
Oh yes,
Eastern European.
Yes, I do. I do a lot of German and Russian and sort of a hybrid Eastern European. Plus, I do, of course, the fantasy accent for Blood of Zeus, for instance, which is a hybrid of British. I call it the Lord of the Rings accent. I do that a lot for games. Just I love it. I love. I mean, your voice is your tool as an actor.
Right.
You have to learn how to use it. And whether that's playing younger or playing older, especially as a voiceover actor, I mean, we have to really manipulate our voice. I just finished a game the other day for a Japanese game where I was dubbing the Japanese lines and you have to like match the exact same cadence, like the same time frame as the Japanese dialogue, which of course the languages are so different.
Oh God.
Yeah, but it's great. It's for me, once again, it's like going to the gym. It's a workout. And when I finish my day of work on that sort of thing, I feel like, oh, that was exciting and fun. I still find joy even in those little VO gigs.
That's good. That's good. When you were coming up, did you feel pegged like, oh, the tall beauty, or did you feel like you needed to be the serious actress, comedian? Because when you were in Clean and Sober, you almost stole some of those scenes. The way they lit you, your big head of curly hair, right? And you had that almost flash dance outfit going on, and you were lit in that smoky room. And I'm like, the beauty's still in the scene here.
tight close up and all that. Yeah, that was Glenn Gordon Caron, wonderful director, really, really thoughtful director. You know, I was so fortunate to play so many different roles. I really was not typecast until, you know, in the minds of the science fiction fans around the world until Babylon 5. But prior to that, I was playing crazy women, murderesses, strippers, doctors, lawyers. I mean, a supermodel. I was playing a lesbian trapped in the desert. You know, I mean, there were all.
I watched that one.
Yeah, Never on Tuesday. I played nurses and vixens, and so I wasn't really. I didn't have your classic ingenue phase per se, because I was very mature. When I was 18 doing Behringers, I was playing a 30-year-old. Yeah. And when I did my second series, Black's Magic, I must have been only maybe 20, and I was playing the mother of a 9-year-old and 10-year-old. So, I mean, I was always cast older because of my deep voice and because of my height. So I was like Lauren Bacall. You know, Lauren Bacall was, she was playing that you know, with Humphrey Bogart. She was 19 years old, and she was playing at least 30. So I think that I was sort of put in that mold as well, which was fine. I had an opportunity to play tons of different roles back in the 80s and 90s and the aughts. So it was wonderful.
I thought because I watched a bunch of movies, bunch of bad ones, bunch of good ones, Hexed. Like, that movie was an absolute train wreck. But you showed some serious comedic talent in there. And I was like, God, did they miss pegging you in better roles, like as a comedic actress? You were killing it for a movie that was on fire. It
was so bad. It was such a bad movie, but yes, I had so much fun playing Hexina. Oh my gosh, I had so many great moments where the director said, "Do whatever you want." I said, "Can I do Elvis Presley when he punches me in the gut?" And said, "Can I? Yeah, sure, do it. Can I do a yeehaw over there when I do this?" He said, "Yeah, sure, do it." I mean, everything I wanted to do, I wanted to be Jim Carrey. You have to understand that. I wanted when I first started seeing what he was doing in movies, that's who I wanted to be. And I used to tell my agent, I want to do all the Robin Williams and Jim Carrey roles. And they'd look at me like I was a freak, because I was getting all the dramatic roles because I'm so good at crying. And I was getting all the authoritative roles because I'm so authoritative, you know. So, cast her as the general, the captain, the commander, the lieutenant, yes, and the sword fighter and the immortal and the queen. You know, I was getting all those roles. I was like, you guys don't understand. I'm funny.
Yeah.
I've always been funny. The only person who gets it now, you know, is my partner. He's like, why aren't you getting more comedy? You're so funny. Because all I do all day long is voices. You know, I'm like a walking, I'm like 100 different people all day long, and everything I do in voices. So even when we watch films, because he can't see far, so I do all the subtitles in the accent of the film we're watching. So if it's a Japanese film, you're getting Japanese inflected English. If it's a German film, it's going to be a German accented English.
You'd be fun in the theater during a foreign film.
I should have done murder. What was that mystery?
Oh, Mystery 3000 or something.
Yes, that's something. I definitely. They could have used lots of the films I did.
Yeah.
Mystery Science Theater 3000. Yeah.
There's, you know, the ugly things in Hollywood they don't tell you is finance, money. How were you so good early on to make your money, keep your money, and not let it all just go away all the time? Because there's always ebb and flows of it's coming and going.
One word, baby: real estate. Buy a house when you're young. Because had I not bought my home in my 20s, I never would have been able to sell said home for twice what I bought it, and then buy a lesser expensive house, take that other money and save it for a rainy day. So that's what I would do. I bought it in a great neighborhood. The house doubled in price. I then bought it in an upcoming neighborhood, Los Feliz, bought for less money, put, a few $100,000 away, bought that house, fixed it up, flipped it again 5 years later, doubled my money again. And so when there were lean years, I was fine. And that was always because of my ability to choose really smart, really wisely in where I would buy a house. And I always doubled. I doubled on my flat in London. I doubled in all of my homes. And then
Where did you get that sense? Who mentored you? Who?
I always loved homes. Even as a child, I begged my father to build me my own home, and I had a little house in my backyard, and that was mine. I always was obsessed with homes, just having my own home, and so that was helpful. And I guess I got very, very lucky. I would say that I was fortunate. I had a real estate angel on my shoulder that led me to great properties, and I had an instinct for how to rebuild them. I gutted this house that I'm in now and rebuilt it to what I wanted. And I gutted it and built this amazing kitchen because I could see it. I walk into a house and I say, you got to take the ceiling up. You got to take that wall down. You got to do this. I just have a sense when I walk into a home of what it should be, what's aching to come out of the house. That, and I don't spend money on stupid things. Every actor I knew, when they got their first TV series, they would blow it on a new car. I did not buy a new car until 2014. I got my first new car of my life. And it was a Mazda SUV. All the Mercedes and things that I had throughout my career were used cars that I got for great deals. I've never spent money on handbags or clothes because my mother is a shopaholic. So I have that, I get all of her clothes, and I'm not interested in spending money on clothes. I'm saving for a second home. I like having money in the bank and real estate. I don't care about getting a $600 facial or an $800 haircut. I don't do any of that garbage. It's such colossal waste. I remember one of my friends was making a fortune on a TV series, and she had to have the brand new cell phone and the newest car and the newest this. And, and I said to her, I said, you're going to regret this when you're in your 60s. You're not going to have anything. And she was like, as if that ride was always going to last. And I knew it wasn't going to last. I knew that this wasn't going to last my 20s and my, and my teens. I knew that's also the reason why I didn't go to college, because why would I waste my highest earning money years in college? Your highest earning money years are probably from 18 to 24. If you're good and you're attractive. Mm-hmm. So why the hell would I waste those sitting in a college learning what I already know how to do? You learn more on a set than you do in a class. I learned more working on a set as an actress than I did in any class, in any school, with any teacher.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, 'cause I bet you can count 100 people you've seen over your career that should have had a lot more money than they did, and they blew it on the most dumbest crap, like you said, a car, a relationship gone bad, all that kind of stuff. And it was
ridiculous trips, flying first class, get all the time, not looking for deals, not getting an $800 night hotel room instead of an Airbnb where you can make half of your meals. You don't have to go out 3 times a day. All those sensible things that I just knew because I came from a family that nothing was handed to us. Right. We were rich. So my dad worked his ass off and my brothers worked their asses off to get through college, and they all paid for their own college. I paid for my own car, my own apartment. So nothing was handed to us. So we had to survive. So I knew what $100 was. I knew how hard I worked for $100. I remember thinking I was rich as a 16-year-old because I was able to put a $10 bill in my car as an emergency. And I thought, wow, I've made it. I'm rich. Because I was working 4 jobs and I'd saved up enough money to actually put an emergency $10 bill in my glove box. I thought, wow, I am on top of the world.
I made it. I made it.
I have made it. But think about it. When I bought myself a new bathing suit, I knew that took 9 hours or 12 hours on my feet in a store or serving cappuccinos. Or I had a very, very clear idea of what money was and how much it would cost to move to LA, have a car, pay for gas. I was extremely conscious of saving and being frugal. And that carried me through. I'm a sensible person. I'm not like some, person who spends like a sailor on leave.
Right. Do you miss the winery, the wine cellar that you
wine
had?
cellar.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in L.A. Times. I thought, boy, that woman's got a beauty.
No, you know what? I don't miss anything about alcohol because of what it took from me. So even the beautiful wine cellar, I don't miss it at all. I don't miss it at all. I don't romanticize alcohol like some alcoholics do. Like, oh, when I could drink the big reds, and oh, whiskey. I am to the point where I look at it and I go, that's the devil. So
Keep away.
I have no romanticism about what that substance took from me. It took a big chunk of my life away from me, and I will never forgive it. I will never forgive the alcohol companies for making it seem like it was innocuous and for selling it to teenagers. And I will never look at it and say, oh, those were the days. No. I mean, you know what was great about those days was I wasn't an addict, and I was able to drink and enjoy it and that stuff. But the second it became an issue, I would never go back to those days. No.
I read a Stanley Kubrick quote where he talked about actors should be better, but they go out late. They don't study their lines. They're lazy. So then Stanley gets the reputation of doing 30 takes at a time. When you were getting into your craft, did you take into consideration how much back-end work you had to do in studying your lines, finding that character, and getting better at your craft?
Well, but that was the joy in it. That's one of the most exciting things to me is being on a TV series or getting a film that is a big commitment of time and the part is substantial. Because in a series, you can see the character evolving and you get the backstory and you create a character. And in a film, when you have the time to do so, you create this character. I did a film once called True Rights that nobody saw. And I remember creating the way she walked and the way she would eat and the way that, all of these things about this woman that I became this woman. And that's the joy of acting. So it's kind of frustrating for somebody like me who loves the homework. I love memorizing lines. I love all of it. I love every single thing having to do with the process of acting. I love it all. The only thing I don't like is being unemployed between jobs. But what's really frustrating is being used as an actor, which I have been for the past decade probably or more. I've had very rare opportunity to actually act. What I'm doing is just saying exposition. So there's a huge difference between having a fully formed character where it's got a backstory and you're directed and you're working on the character and you feel like you're really reaching and stretching your muscles. That compared to doing an episodic where you're playing a detective who's just feeding the star some lines like, oh yeah, no, that body came in at 200 hours. It's been here about 3 days. That's to me, that's not acting. I'm feeding the lead person lines. Yeah, and you can argue that, whoa, there are no small roles, only small actors. You can argue until the cows come home to me. But I'll tell you, after years and years of thanklessly delivering lines like, we have to get out of here. Or,
you nailed it.
Or the special today is lentil soup. I mean, after years and years of doing that, I can tell you the difference between exposition acting and really acting. And it's palpable, to say the least.
Yeah. Reading your book, I thought if you wanted to rename the book, Guns, Dogs, and Drugs would have been a good one. My God, being shot, dogs attacking, the drug use was the 80s, but I almost drove off the road with the guns and the dog scenes.
Yeah.
Fans shooting you and dog attacks.
Yeah.
What the hell, lady?
Yeah.
Claudia, that's amazing.
I know. My dog attacked my face. She had a violent seizure, and that was scary. And then the fan stuff, the guy shooting me at a convention is part and parcel of being a sci-fi icon. That just comes with the territory. I mean, not that everybody's going to get shot by a fan, but I think that there's a certain, let's say there's a certain, shall we say, sort of detour from reality for a lot of these people. Let me just say that in the kindest way possible. Some of my fans seem to think that I truly am the person that I played, particularly on Babylon 5. So when they, they have a difficult time differentiating between reality and television. So that comes into play when you're in the sci-fi genre world, fantasy and genre. It comes into play that you're going to meet a lot of kind of oddballs, and that's fine. I call them my freaks and geeks. I mean, I happen to love genre fans because of their loyalty, and because they will follow you through your entire career, the good, the bad, and the ugly. They will buy your book, damn it. They will even buy your CD, even though you can't sing. So yes, and they're very supportive. When I did Playboy, there was a lot of fans that were very upset at me because they thought that I was denigrating the character that I had created, that I had played on Babylon 5. And I was like, yeah, but it paid my mortgage down. What are you going to do? Are you going to hand me 6 figures to take my kid off? Because if you will, here's where you can send it. I'll do it again. I'll do it tomorrow. If they want me to get naked again for that, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll pay this mortgage down. Not a problem. It's called business, baby. But they also, in that regard, they were also very supportive when I went through my difficulties and I came out sort of out of the closet with my alcohol misuse. And I did my TEDx talk. And when I opened my nonprofit, sci-fi fans were responsible for funding my documentary, One Little Pill. And I will forever be in their debt. I was dying to make this documentary about the treatment I advocate, the Sinclair method. And I was only able to do it by doing a fundraiser that the sci-fi fans contributed to, because they knew of my struggle. They admired that I came out and that I was trying to help other people. And they paid for that film.
Let's dive into that. When did you start to feel, because the opening parts in the book about going to the grocery store and buying it and some pimple kid looking at you thinking, this is what you're buying at 6 a.m., lady, alcohol. Like, when did you start to get a sense like this monster had you by the balls?
Well, it's very interesting because I think that my story is not unusual. I went through a very traumatic breakup and I had some unresolved childhood issues. After reading my book, I was raped by our neighbor many, many times. And my brother was killed when I was 8. And my parents had a contentious relationship for some time. And I was extremely sensitive child, and I still am a highly sensitive person. So all of these things made an impact on me, and drinking was fun until it wasn't fun. And when it wasn't, what happened was I started drinking on a more consistent basis. And a lot of the people that I was hanging around were heavy drinkers, because we were all wine clubbers and all that stuff. It wasn't until a boyfriend of mine said to me, you drink really quickly. And that's when I went, oh, that's interesting. And he said, it kind of worries me. And I became very conscious of it at that point. And I went, wow, I am drinking a lot. And I think one of the biggest mistakes that everybody makes is I went cold turkey. And now that I'm
doing that a lot.
But no, it was that first time that screwed everything up, because what happens is, now that I know about the alcohol deprivation effect, is when you are on a path to alcoholism and your neural pathways are really, really engorged and they're big, they're like super lane highways, and you're regularly feeding your brain what it wants, which is ethanol, then you're on a sort of consistent basis. But when you stop and you deprive the brain of the ethanol, you go into what's called the alcohol deprivation effect. And the first few months of sobriety feel fine, but then the cravings come back so heavily for the majority of people, and you relapse much heavier than you were drinking before. So let's say I was drinking 5 nights a week, half a bottle or a bottle at a time. I went from that heavy usage to literally being a binge drinker that could not stop. So it was like, here you're a social drinker, then you're sort of a heavyish drinker, and now you're sober, and now you're a wicked binge drinker. It literally did something to my brain and that snapped, so that the second I touched alcohol after being sober for that extended period of time, I turned into a rapid learning. I learned very rapidly the act of being a binge drinker. It's just like I just changed. So I was not a binge drinker prior to that. Right. So that bout of sobriety caused the alcohol deprivation effect. And then once I started drinking again, bam, I had no off button at all. So that then turned me into a life. At that point, my years were literally broken into how long can I stay sober? And sobriety was not fun then. You see, now right. I'm happily abstinent from alcohol. I have zero cravings because of the Sinclair method. I have alcohol all over the house. You know, my partner has the occasional drink. I don't care. I don't want it. I have no desire for it. That's a huge difference from when I was in enforced sobriety.
Right.
Enforced sobriety was a living hell. Everything was dictated by, where can I go where there's no alcohol? How can I not be around it? I was judgy around people who were drinking. I was like an ex-smoker, just watching people going, oh, what a life, what an alcoholic, judgy, horrible. I was awful to be around. I was impatient, miserable. I was snappy. I was not a good sober person at all. I was literally white knuckling every day of my life.
Oh God.
I was in a different kind of hell. This is what I call a dry drunk, and I hate that expression, but there's really no better way to say it. It's like, how else do you explain why Bill W. died begging for whiskey? He was a dry drunk. He was literally deprived of the one thing he wanted his whole life, and he was white knuckling every day of his life through sobriety. That is not a life. I'm sorry, it's not a life. And that's why I advocate medications, because I just believe in it. It shouldn't be that bloody hard to get. It should not be. It shouldn't be punitive, and it shouldn't be difficult. If there's a medication that works for you, take it.
Yeah, I mean, going through the book, and when you're having this battle, I was just like, oh my God.
I was at war. Every single day was war. This is why I looked so bad. I was exhausted. I couldn't sleep. There was no happy time. I was not me. I was not me. I lost Claudia. And to not have yourself, is it's the worst. It's the deepest part of hell.
Right.
I think addiction is literally the absolute lowest depths of hell. And I never thought, of course, you never think that it can happen to you, because I'm strong and sensible and smart and savvy, and I'm a street smart. I'm a survivor. How could this happen to me? And when it gets you, man, it is scary. It's scary.
Walk me through the Sinclair method and how you kind of found it and that path, because that changes your life.
Yeah. Well, I had done some deep begging, praying. I had tried everything. I had tried rehab and AA. I tried talk therapy.
You did it all.
I did it all. And I eventually had a bender that I was really frightened of. Once again, I went cold turkey, which is the worst thing you can do when you should always taper off of alcohol. I had no idea. I had no clue. And I went cold turkey and had some very bad physical side effects. Like, I thought I was going to stroke out. So I went to a medical detox, first and only. And I thank God every day that I went there, because that's where I found the flyer for a treatment that involved a form of naltrexone. And when I went home, I Googled it, and I found this book randomly popped up called The Cure for Alcoholism. And I thought, oh yeah, that's snake oil if I've ever heard, but they had a free excerpt from it, and I read it. And because I come from a medical background, my family are a lot of doctors and scientists and researchers. I really, my ears perked up when I was reading this, and I thought, wow, this sounds like it makes sense. And I ended up asking my doctor, I was very honest. I said, I'm really frightened to death of my drinking. And he said, oh, you're not drinking that much. How much are you drinking? I said, I can do 2 bottles of wine at a sitting. And he said, that's nothing. And I said, I really want naltrexone. And he said, I'm not going to give you an opiate. I said, it's not an opiate. It's an opiate blocker. You don't derive any pleasure from it. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this. I'm arguing with my doctor. I'm telling him I'm an alcoholic, and he won't give me an FDA approved drug for alcoholism. And I said, it's FDA approved since 1994. It's for alcoholism. And he said, you're not an alcoholic. Just cut down. And I said, I am an alcoholic. I said, and I want this medication. He said, well, I'm not giving it to you. So I know.
You're in this, I can't believe you're in this office arguing with a medical physician, a doctor.
Yes.
I'm trying to get better. And he's like, you're fine.
No, I know. And my liver scan was off the chart elevated. And he said, you just stop for a while. It'll go back down. I could not believe this. And it's probably because he was drinking 2 bottles of wine a night.
Right.
He was justifying his own alcoholism.
He's like, listen, kid, you're not even near.
I have that and whiskey. So
I had this before you walked in.
Yeah, exactly. I ended up having to order my drugs from India, and I waited 6 weeks, and then I tried it, and it was an absolute miracle. And at that point, I said, I will make this my raison d'être, my reason to be. I will make this a household name if it's the last bloody thing I do on earth, because this is barbaric that we aren't giving this to alcoholics. And so I made a decision to write the book. I contacted the author of The Cure for Alcoholism. He told me, write a book yourself. I wrote the book. That wasn't enough. I then made my documentary. That wasn't enough. I then opened my nonprofit foundation. That wasn't enough. We are turning 10 this summer.
Yes.
And we have a shoestring budget. I have 1 employee. It's not enough. I need a staff. I need more money coming in. I need to make this more well known. But the good news is, in the time that I've been doing this, the entire country of the United States and all of Canada is covered with doctors who will support you doing the Sinclair method. And you go from that. When I started, there was nobody that would support you. And now the entire country is covered. So I'm so happy about that. And during the pandemic, it was a huge boon for telemedicine. And that made everything a lot easier as well, because suddenly doctors said, you know what, people are drinking too much. I can just prescribe this in a video chat. And so here we are 10 years later. I mean, I started TSM in 2009. I was on it myself for until 2018, so for 9 years. And then I was abstinent for 4. And my nonprofit is turning 10. And in that time, we now have all these resources. If anybody goes to YouTube, there's a billion videos. There's been 3 TSM conferences. There's books about it. There's 20-year-olds coming out that they're on TSM. There's telemedicine companies that only do TSM. There are movies about it. Now you can get a drink log app for Android that we have on our website. We have all these free resources. There are 10 support meetings every week around the world where people all around the globe meet up for the Sinclair Method meetings. We have communities everywhere. I'm very proud of the work that everybody's done. And I'm especially proud that I came out and started yelling about this, because it needs to be more well known. I even spoke at the U.S. Senate. This is appalling that medications are not employed more often when people admit to their doctor, I have a drinking problem. To tell somebody, oh, just cut down and go to AA is bullshit. Excuse my language, but you know what? AA is a peer support meeting. It's not a medical treatment.
Right.
And this needs medical treatment. This is, you cannot pray addiction away. Believe me, I tried it. There are very few divine interventions that occur for people. I'm sure that they do exist. I met one woman who said she prayed for 18 hours and she's never touched alcohol again. Good for her. But one woman out of 10 years, I've been informally coaching people for 13 years. And in that time, I have never met one person who went to rehab and stayed sober. Not one person. And here we are laughing about Ben Affleck going 9 times, Britney Spears going 12 times. It's not funny.
Right.
It's not funny. This is not funny. And it means that it's ineffective treatment. And it also means that it just isn't working. So, and of course, these places, they don't offer medication. They offer 12-step programs with a view of the Malibu beach, and it's $200,000. It's ridiculous. It's a revolving door business model. And I think it should stop. I think this multi-billion-dollar business of ineffective rehab treatment should just go the hell away.
I mean, that's what I took from your book, the research. Is it just that simple that AA is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that if they got rid of it, Sinclair does not subsidize that kind of money? I mean, it is a money maker.
It's all about this. Why can't we work together? My logo of my nonprofit is Options Save Lives. Not one thing works for everybody. So but why can't you combine medication with AA? Why are they so hardcore a-holes that they won't allow somebody into a meeting if they're taking naltrexone for cravings? That to me is punitive, barbaric. Well, then again, they're reading from a 110-year-old book. So it's just ridiculous. Right. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm not dissing AA. It works for people, but I'm angry at them for not allowing people who want to get better. These are people who want to be sober. And if they're on ketamine or baclofen or a camprosate, who cares? But they're so hard-lined that they won't let anybody in who's taking a medication. And that is bullshit to me. That's bullshit. That to me is counterintuitive. It's like, oh, you're a peer support loving group of people, like-minded people who say that the only thing you need to attend an AA meeting is the desire to be sober. Yet you do not allow people in that say they're on naltrexone. So explain that to me. And by the way, Bill W. would have loved naltrexone and he would have used it himself. He was giving himself LSD, for God's sake, for his own alcoholism and megadoses of niacin. So if you're going to tell me that man wouldn't have embraced medication-assisted treatment for alcoholism, you're crazy.
Yeah.
This would have been right up his alley. He was a science freak. He was trying everything. So I just believe that we can all work together, that there's a place in rehab facilities where they give the person naltrexone for cravings, and then they tell them, if you think you're going to drink, take it 1 hour prior to the first drink of the day. That's just common sense, because it works better in a targeted manner. You give them the prescription, you say, take it for cravings, and if you're going to drink, take it as a prophylactic. Right. How difficult is that? But they're so hardline 12-step abstinence only that they're causing these people to relapse and die. And I just think it's like, hey, harm reduction exists. Harm reduction is a lot more understandable and believable, especially for a young person. I have clients who are 22 years old. How are they going to stay sober for 80 years? Give me.
Not going to happen.
They're going to use. So let's let them use responsibly and safely.
Right. I was getting sweaty hands listening to you in the book about having to take the pill an hour before you went to this event or a family event. I was like, oh, take the pill, Claudia, take the pill.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
Yeah. Yeah.
What was the driving force for you to say, I'm going to do this nonprofit foundation? I've got to do this.
I just realized I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I didn't do everything in my power to make this a household name. This was the reason why I was born. This is why I was put here on earth, was to help others with this method. And if I can be an actress at the same time and have opportunities like this to talk about it, all the better. Yeah. When I pray for a really great acting job, I don't pray for it for my own ego. I pray for it so I'll have a bigger platform to talk about the Sinclair method.
Yeah.
That's why I want to be more successful in my industry, not because it's ego or because I want that second home. It's because I can reach millions of people. Imagine, my TED Talk's been seen by almost 5 million people or something like that. And imagine if I was on a big TV series or had a big film coming out, then I could reach billions of people.
Right.
I mean, it's if I could put one person, like a Ben Affleck on the Sinclair method, or Johnny Depp or somebody, if I could just put them on the Sinclair method and they could talk about it, then everybody would know about it. So I'm scratching, I send emails to agents and publicists saying, please tell Brad Pitt about this pill, and of course they never get anywhere. My emails end up in the trash, but
why do you think that is?
Because publicists aren't going to say to their breadwinners, oh, you came out in GQ as an alcoholic. Well, here's a video of a girl talking on a TEDx talk about a method. They don't care. They don't care about their health, the actor's health. They don't, as long as they're making them money, they don't give a shit. You think they're going to advise them how to be in recovery? I don't think so.
Jesus. So shitty. So shitty. Or do you look back and go, damn it, there's some opportunities missed because of alcoholism?
Oh God, if I lived like that, I couldn't live like that. I mean, does it break my heart at times that I lost at least a decade of my life to that son of a bitch? Yeah, I miss those years, but on the other hand, I realize what I've gained from it and what I've learned along the way and how happy I am now, and that I overcame an immense struggle, and that I can stand firmly in who I am today and be proud that I took something unbelievably heinous and turned it into something really beautiful, which is my nonprofit, my film, my TED Talk, my advocacy, my coaching, and just the love and hope that I give people. I mean, I literally every day get an email or a direct message on Instagram from somebody saying, "You saved my life."
How does that feel? I mean, that's got to warm your heart to the fullest.
It makes me want to cry every time I read it. It makes me want to cry, because what if I wouldn't have come out? What if I wouldn't have come out? What if I would have just said, you know what, nobody knows I'm an alcoholic in business, so I could just fix myself and stay quiet and get my career back and do all that, but I wouldn't have been able. That's not me. That's not who I am.
Jesus.
This had to be told. This had to have a face attached to it. I had to tell my story. I wouldn't be able to live myself if I didn't.
In the summer, or I don't know if the summer, but the year 2017, the Me Too movement started taking off. Reading your book, I was like, my God, I can't believe you didn't knock more people on their ass reading that book, of either being making passes at you, vulgar things. I was watching something, and Corbin Bernsen came on the other day on the show, and I'm like, that son of a bitch. I don't even know him, but I hate the son of a bitch now. Like,
I know. I heard he has a new series. I was like, are you serious?
God damn it.
Masturbated on me.
I mean, how did you not just create physical harm on that man's face and knock him on his ass?
Because I was savvy. I went to the producers and I said, well, everybody just witnessed this man doing something really disgusting to me. So you have a choice. You either shut down production because I'll raise a stink, or you option the script that I have.
That was very savvy of you to say, I got a film and you're going to fund it, you son of a bitch.
Buy my script for a year's option, and then I get the rights back. In other words, I extorted them. I blackmailed them, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of it, because what would have happened if I would have come out and said that, oh, he did this, or Steven Seagal did this, or
right.
William Shatner did this? I would have been blackballed.
Right.
I would have been known as difficult to work with. So instead, I shut my mouth, or I told the right people, or I got what I wanted from it. Yeah. That's as simple as that. These people, this behavior was going to exist and persist. And at that point in society, the woman would have been blamed. I would have been blamed.
I would have been a fired grip worker on that set, because I would have dropped a high boy right on his head.
I told you what they did.
Yeah.
They baseball batted his car.
Yeah.
After somebody ruined his BMW. I don't know who it was, but I have a feeling it was some of the crew members.
Yeah.
Because I saw what he did to me.
Oh, God.
I can guarantee you, these people like Robert Davi and all these men, I guarantee you they don't even remember doing it. I guarantee you that it was such a common occurrence in their life, the behavior, that they don't remember. I'm sure Davi doesn't remember, like, putting cigarette burns in that prostitute's arm that I witnessed, or Shatner trying to make out with me when I was 19 years old, or any of that stuff.
Yeah, you're young enough to be his daughter, for God's sake.
So they don't remember, because they did it so many times.
Right. You were one of 100,000.
One of 100,000, exactly. So why should I ruin my career by speaking up? Nowadays, of course, you can, but that back then, either grinned and bear it, or you went and blackmailed them and said, buy my By the way, it was a great script.
It was. All right. So you've called it. I got this quote here. You say that Babylon 5 was your career highlight. You still stand by that?
It was my career highlight?
Yeah.
I mean, it was one of the most fun jobs that I've ever had, for sure. And the most enjoyable experience I've ever had on any acting job.
It was at a right time too, in that period of, the 90s, where there was no social media, there's no internet. It was still pure. It was TV. Now you would be on Instagram and TikTok and doing reels and all kinds of crap, and you would have really crazy followers, but you still got that glimpse of good time TV for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, no, it was lovely. Do I think it's my height? No, I think that I still have yet to do what I was meant to do as a performer. I just have a little delay because of my hiccup along the way, but I'm at the height of my powers now as an actress. So,
I mean, you are, right? You're a master now at this point. You can.
I'm not only a master, but I think I look better than I did in my 40s. So what the hell? Why not?
Yeah.
I'm in better shape. I'm happier. I'm more content with who I am.
You look great. Your skin looks great. That's always what matters for a woman. You got to have great skin.
I have great skin. I feel very good, very hopeful about the future. I'm not going anywhere. So,
how's the voice work? That's been something very interesting for you, because that was not something a lot of actors did in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, even in the 80s. And now it's a regular thing.
It's delightful. I've done already 4 or 5 jobs this month, in January, and I just did one yesterday. I do everything from audio stories to games. I actually launched a comic book company last year with an Irish writer named Chris McCauley, and so that's a lot of different things in that world as well.
Did you? I mean, when that started, did you even think that would be something, like when you were doing the cartoon and you did the voiceover, that you'd be doing Jaguar?
Yeah, early on, I got a Disney film, and I got a Disney film, and I got the campaigns and stuff like that.
That must have been unbelievable. What's the future project? What do you got going on next?
Well, I'm still playing the captain of the LAPD on 911. Blood of Youth coming out season 2 and 3. There's a new secret project that's coming out, a Babylon 5 project that I'm not allowed to say anything about, that will be launching at San Diego Comic-Con this summer. What else? I have a book coming out from Macmillan Tor, a young adult book, with my partner Morgan Buchanan. Plus I've got the comic book company, which we have an RPG game coming out. We have issue 2 of Dark Legacies is coming out in the summertime. And the audiobooks from BBV. Oh my gosh, there's so much stuff going on.
Playboy hasn't called, said, hey, we want you back?
No, but I'll go.
Girl's got to pay a mortgage.
Got to pay down that mortgage.
Thank you so much for doing this. I'm glad you're doing great. The book was fantastic. It was like the best thing I got to do and listen to. I was white-knuckled the whole damn time listening to it. It was great.
Wonderful. Well, it's nice to see you, and thank you very much for a fun chat.
Yeah, you're the best. Keep rocking it, okay, lady?
I will, sweetheart. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia. Talk to you soon.
Good day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to my conversation with Claudia Christensen. If you enjoyed this episode, please click the like button and become a subscriber to the show. Remember, you can follow the Just a Good Conversation podcast on Instagram, and you can find all of our past shows on the website at justagoodconversation.com. Thank you for listening.